I caught my wife cheating on me with our wedding planner on our wedding day. Can you believe that she picked the most important day in our lives as the day to cheat? I have come across many women in my life, but none of them has been as disgusting and stupid as the woman I now call my wife today. Can you imagine the gravity of the situation at hand? There is no form of disrespect worse than stooping so low on your own wedding day. My fellow Redditors, I'm not just going to sit back and act like nothing happened. I'm extremely lucky to have found out the truth, and trust me, now that I know, that woman is going to get what's coming for her. It was so close that I almost didn't know the true nature of what happened. If I had been like one of those men to fall helplessly in love with a woman, I'd have been crushed like a freaking pie. I'm thankful that I did not listen to my stupid friends who told me not to be suspicious of my own partner. Lol. Maybe they expected me to blindly follow her like I was a fool. I don't believe in the concept of trusting a woman so much that you turn a blind eye to the signs that are obviously in front of you. I'd rather end a relationship because the woman did not like my alertness than end a relationship because I found out I was being cheated on. There's nothing more devastating than finding out that the man you've been paying to plan your wedding has been sleeping with your wife. Indirectly, I've been paying this man to sleep with the woman I wanted to marry. Well, technically, I'm already married to her, and that's what makes the situation worse than it already is. The discovery of something so deceitful is the most annoying thing ever. Right now, I can't even help but think that my friends could have been in on it. I believe this because they have been against all the suspicions I had for my wife. Anytime I brought it up, they'd advise me to forget about it and focus on the wedding. Oh, let me clarify something. I only saw signs of my wife's cheating behavior a day before our wedding. Why did I not call it off? Like I said, I saw signs. I was not sure. She did not give anything away. I could not just suddenly cancel a wedding with over 150 people in attendance, just because I saw signs I was not sure of. Now this is the part where I blame my family and her family. The pressure that people put on you before your wedding makes you blinded to everything just because you cannot imagine canceling all the plans you have made. Before I go on with this experience of mine, let me give you all an insight into the relationship I have with my wife and how I met her. My name is Daniel, and I am a 29-year-old man who is married to Andrea, a 27-year-old woman. I met Andrea at a friend's wedding, and the funny thing is that I even brought a date to the wedding. So, do you want to know how I left the wedding with Andrea? I think things got complicated that day at the wedding reception. The couple we were celebrating are very versatile couples who are hard party animals. They live for parties and a good time. So, of course, their wedding had numerous varieties of drinks and shots. We drank, and we honestly almost exceeded our limit. I can hold my alcohol very well. I can hold my alcohol insanely well, to be honest. But I don't know what those people added to those drinks. I got drunk for the first time in my whole life that day. I wasn't the only one in attendance who got drunk. Everybody did, including the couples. Andrea was not left out of the dunk squad, and that's how we started talking. I don't even know where my date went that night and how I ended up in my apartment with Andrea. The next morning was when everything came crashing down on me like a bucket of ice water. I had a one-night stand with Andrea. We all know one-night stands are not uncommon, but it was a big deal for me since I'm very particular about the people I interact with. For me to have left my date and went home with Andrea, I knew I had to be extremely drunk that night. My date did not contact me after that day again, and I was left as a single man. To my surprise, Andrea messaged me the next day after she left my apartment in the morning. I was surprised to see her message because I did not recollect asking her for her phone number. My fellow Redditors, the truth is that Andrea actually took my phone number from my phone that night. Yes, my wife was the one who made the first move. I admired her confidence, and that's how we started talking. We would hook up once in a while, but it soon got heated, and then we started dating. We dated for 4 years. And trust me, guys, it was an on and off dating. We weren't really a stable couple for the first 2 years. We would break up, then get back together again, and it went on and on. I really felt like she was my soulmate because we always seemed to find each other all over again. We dated seriously for 2 years straight, and that's when we decided to get married. I proposed to her, and she said yes. That's how the journey started. To be honest, the wedding preparations are always the things that ruin marriage and the compatibility of the couple. If the couple are able to withstand the tedious wedding preparations and family rivalry, you can boldly say that they have a strong will to be together. To be honest, I'll say this to you all. Our wedding preparation was insane. Our families are the exact opposite of each other. They have different tastes in everything. Planning the wedding had to be one of the worst periods of my life. Her family wanted a big wedding, and my family wanted a small wedding. I had to put my foot down and let them know my wife and I hold the final say on how our wedding should go. Andrea and I finally decided to have a wedding that was not too big or small. We cut down the guest list to 150 people, and that's how we made it work. My fellow Redditors, let's get to the whole starting point of this story. The wedding planner who had been fucking my wife. We all know how it's always normal for a woman to take charge of the wedding planning. I mean, it's always the woman who wants the wedding to be perfect and dreamy, like she wants it. I never had a problem with Andrea taking charge of the wedding. To be honest, the wedding was bigger than I wanted it to be. Her family initially wanted a guest list of 250 people. I don't even know how they know that many people in the first place. We had to cut it down to 150 because I made it clear that I was not comfortable with so many people. I initially wanted just 90 people present. Having so many people only brought a bigger workload, but Andrea promised that she would handle things. I really didn't care as long as we had a wedding. But Andrea wanted to go big and extra. She spent nights looking at screens and browsing what the perfect wedding theme would be. At first, I tried to let her do her thing, but consequently, I decided to be a part of it. Not because I wanted to, but because I did not want to overwhelm her. Despite my desire to help, Andrea assured me that she was just fine on her own and didn't need any help. I stopped trying because I did not have the time to waste anyway. Andrea chose the wedding planner and I paid him. That was the arrangement. But I never expected our arrangement to end up with lies and unfaithfulness. My fellow Redditors, the wedding planner was a man. That did sit well with me because I hardly heard of cases where the wedding planner was a man. In fact, up until that moment, I didn't know that there were male wedding planners. I know they usually have male assistants or employees, but I never expected the head wedding planner to be a man. I did not suspect cheating because he was a man. No, it was far from it. I only doubted his ability to carry out the job, and that's why I asked Andrea why she picked him. She told me he was actually a very good wedding planner and that he was very popular in the wedding scene. I know nothing about wedding planners and their social presence, so I did not press further. From the designs he drafted off, he was actually very good at what he did. I made him go through a test my sister prepared, and he aced it. I did not have a problem hiring him, as long as he was good at his job. I do not have low self-esteem, so I was not troubled by having a man plan the wedding as long as he was a professional. Little did I know that this wedding planner was having the time of his life with Andrea. Now that I think about it, I'm really finding the whole situation laughable. This man was practically sleeping with Andrea nonstop, and I only found out on our wedding day. When I say I found out on our wedding day, I mean it was just barely an hour after our wedding and before our reception. But I'll get into that later. Let me tell you all what's really getting on my nerves. You know that it's a normal occurrence for the wedding planner and the bride to spend a lot of time together. They have to pick a dress that matches the decor, the perfect veil that will not contrast with the colors. They have to do everything together so that the bride is satisfied. For the groom, you're mostly just talking about your suit and tie. You have no business with choosing lipstick colors or jewelry. So naturally, I had barely any interaction with the wedding planner. During our wedding preparation, I took a leave from work, but I still had to attend Zoom meetings and try working on my computer. I had to make money. I'm sure my fellow Redditors can agree that wedding expenditures are outrageous. Nobody really cares how much you spent. They just want to see how perfect everything is. For me, it was the same situation. I had to work because I knew there's a life after the wedding, and we'd need to feed too. I don't consider myself a strict man, but I do consider myself a very intentional man. I don't like to lazy around or mince words. I did not hesitate to tell Andrea to cut down her spending. She was spending recklessly, and I was not having it. I warned her to cut everything down. Andrea literally took a whole month leave from work. That meant she was not getting any salary. I had to make her understand that money did not fall on trees. To be honest, our problems began from there. She got offended that I was telling her to watch how she spent my own money. Listen, I'm not a stingy man and I don't have a problem with spending on my wife, but I don't see anything wrong with telling her to watch how she spends money on irrelevant things. I still stand with what I said and there's no changing it. You should be able to respect money that you don't earn and use it for things that make sense. I mean, Andrea wanted us to have our reception on a yacht. Listen, if the guest list contained just under 50 people, I would not have a problem with that. But 150 people was just too outrageous. I was not ready to fund 150 people on a yacht. Can you imagine how much their feeding alone would cost? I made it clear to Andrea that we must have the wedding reception in a hotel. I did not leave room for debate, and I literally put my foot down on that one. I did not expect the reaction I got from Andrea. She began to act like a fucking spoiled brat. Mind you, this happened 2 weeks before our wedding. Andrea became rude and rebellious just because I changed the reception venue. I got so angry at one point that I told her I was going to cut things off if she did not change her attitude. She got scared and apologized to me. I honestly thought she'd keep to her word, and she did, but she did so in her own deceitful way. Even though Andrea stopped overreacting and trying to have an attitude, I still spoke to my friends about it. I told them I was not impressed with her behavior, and I explained why I felt that way to them. If Andrea behaved that way before we started our wedding preparation, I'd have taken a decision without consulting anyone first. But the reason I gave her the benefit of doubt is because I knew how stressful planning a wedding could be. I was stressed myself and understood that the tension and pressure to outdo yourself and make everything perfect can make you lose your personality a little bit. My friends brushed my concerns off and told me it was normal for women to become cranky during their wedding preparations. The married ones even narrated their own similar experiences to me and told me not to worry about it. If only I knew that my own experience came with a cheating scandal. Another reason why I did not give Andrea a hard time is because I felt bad for leaving all the planning to her. I tried to help her several times, but she turned my help down and told me she was just fine doing it alone. It's really not my fault that she took up most of the stress. Sometimes I'd try to input ideas and even help her, but she told me I was just adding to her stress. That discouraged me, and so I left her to do what she really wanted to do. So, as our wedding day drew closer, Andrea was back to her normal self. She stopped having an attitude and she listened to my inputs. I did not find this weird at all because I believed that she was back to her normal self because the wedding stress was coming to an end. I stopped trying to pry into her life and I stopped suspecting her movements. But 2 days to our wedding, I questioned everything I thought was true. We were already logged in at our hotel and we were busy getting ready for bed. Andrea suddenly got a phone call and she rushed out of the room to receive the call. I found this very weird because we never received calls away from each other. Even when it's a call about work, we sit with each other and take the call. There are even times when we put the call on loudspeaker so the other person could hear what was being said. So I obviously knew something had to be fishy if Andrea did not receive the call in front of me. I was pissed off and irritated at the same time. I left the room and decided to go search for her. I did not care how she'd feel if she saw me following her. A wedding was not a joke, so I had to be sure my wife was aware of that. I found her in the hallway whispering into the phone, and that's when I lost it. I walked up to her and tried grabbing the phone from her hands. She ended the call immediately and asked me why I disrupted her call. I asked her why she found it hard to receive the call in the room, and she gave the excuse of not wanting to disturb me. I told her I did not mind, and she was aware of that. Andrea tried to brush it off by telling me she was tired and that we needed to go to bed, but I was not having it. My fellow Redditors, I had to make sure she told me what the call was about. Andrea got annoyed and told me she was talking to a relative of hers who needed directions on how to get to the hotel. That was a lame excuse, and I told her I did not buy it at all. This is to tell you guys how vigilant I'd been, but I was still played like a fool at the end of the day. I made Andrea understand that her suspicious movements were only making me have second doubts about the wedding. She got upset when I told her that and explained to me that she was really talking to a relative. She even went as far as showing me the call log. The number was saved as aunt. Well, my fellow Redditors, I just discovered that Andrea's aunt has a beard and looks like a man. Oh wait, he looks like our wedding planner. He is our wedding planner. I can't even believe the kind of lame excuse I fell for that day. Of course I believed her, and went on with it. How am I expected to suddenly guess she was lying to me? It's ironic if you think about it. You know, sometimes you get caught up in situations that are not ideal at all. I'm a witness to that, and I can tell you this for free, it's always irritating. There is nothing more annoying than being blindsided and lied to many times. Everything only makes sense when you have found out the truth. But before the truth is out, it's almost like you're going around a maze and you do not know the direction to take. One day before my wedding, I was practically going around a maze because Andrea was making me doubt a lot of things. My fellow Redditors, imagine what I was thinking when I saw these signs 24 hours before I tried the knot. The preparations were intensifying, and guests had started arriving. My colleagues from work and my relatives from far and near were present. Even my boss made it to my wedding. Everything seemed fine that day, until Andrea gave me a reason to worry again. I was not worried about her. I was worried about making a fool of myself in front of so many people. I needed to know why Andrea was nowhere to be seen a day before our wedding. Yes, Reddit, you read that right. Andrea practically vanished from the room, and I did not see her for a very long time. Anyone I asked told me she went shopping for a last-minute design for the wedding. I did not like how that sounded at all. The wedding planner was supposed to be the one in charge of running errands like that. I asked them why the wedding planner did not go get it, and they said he accompanied Andrea. Yes, I'm telling you the facts. Andrea left the hotel with the wedding planner to get whatever design she needed to get. You all needed to see how mad I was that day. I was practically livid. I did not appreciate the fact that Andrea left the hotel with the wedding planner without letting me know first. It felt like she was just going around making whatever decisions she thought were right. She did not consult me first. If I left the hotel like that without her knowledge, I'd probably be tagged the heartless fiancé who does not let his wife know where he's going. But Andrea did not think twice before doing what she did. Even then, I did not suspect that Andrea was cheating on me. I did not even suspect that she had anything to do with the wedding planner at all. That's just me telling you how secretive they had been. I know some of you might comment that I was a fool not to notice the signs, but that is just because you all already know where this is headed. I did not know back then. I could not even think of it. It's just like a woman finding out her husband is sleeping with her best friend who is her chief bridesmaid. Let's say she saw them together on many occasions, but she did not suspect a thing until she found out they were actually sleeping with each other. That's the same case for me. There's no way I suddenly thought about the prospect of my wife sleeping with our own wedding planner. It's not something that happens every day. When Andrea came back with the wedding planner that day, I pulled her to the side and had a very heated argument with her. I inquired where she had been, and she told me she went to get something for the wedding. I asked her why she did not let me know, and she said it slipped off her mind. I did not let her off the hook this time. I was so angry that I asked her if she did not want to get married anymore. She was surprised and asked why I was implying that. To be honest, that day we had a very long argument, and at the end of the day she apologized and promised not to be so careless again. It's not the best situation to have an argument a day to your wedding day, but it's not an unlikely situation. It happens a lot, and I know this because I've attended many weddings before. The bride and groom argue and have differences even on the very day of their wedding. Andrea begged for my forgiveness and told me the wedding stress was making her forget things, and that's why she forgot to let me know a heat of time. I thought about it for a while and decided to let it go. To be honest, I could also see that she was stressed with the wedding, but scratch that. I can now tell that the source of her stress was just as a result of her trying to juggle her secret affair with planning the wedding. Everything that happened to her during that period was all her fault. Andrea is to be blamed for how everything turned out. She made poor, deceitful decisions and thought she could be quirky about it. Now, let me tell you all what happened on the wedding day and how I found out she was cheating on me with the wedding planner. Our wedding day came and we were really excited. You know that feeling of satisfaction when everything you have worked so hard for is finally happening before your eyes? You feel content and extremely grateful to witness it. That feeling was no different from what I felt. In my case, I'd spent a lot of money on the wedding, so when I saw how it turned out, I was super excited. A day before the wedding, I had a bachelor party and so did Andrea. Andrea had a bridal shower. It was like a remake of how we met each other for the first time. Just like that day, we both got drunk and spent the night together. I woke up with a headache on my wedding day, but I was lucky enough to get some hot soup, which helped with the hangover. I did not see Andrea in the morning because she went to get ready. I also spent time getting ready for the wedding. It felt good to see our family members together. They all seemed happy for us, and I was really glad that they could make it. If I'm correct, there had to be more than 150 people at the wedding that day. Thankfully, I did not agree to having the wedding on the yacht, so I was not really bothered. After we said our vows in church, it was time for us to go get some rest before we went to the reception. Andrea had to go change her dress and I had to go change mine too. I also wanted to take a shower because I was very tired. The reception hall was set up at that time and some of the guests were already getting ready to go to the venue. After taking a shower and changing my clothes, I decided to go in search of Andrea. I forgot to give her the bracelet I bought for her the night before. I felt like the bracelet would look good on the reception dress she was going to wear. It took me some time to find the room Andrea was logged in because I'd not seen the room in the morning. We separated to get dressed and chose separate rooms to get ready. While I was still in search of her room, I was very excited to be a married man. I kept thinking about the bumps we had before getting married and how we met each other at a friend's party. I think it's safe to say that I was practically going down memory lane that day. I had to ask a worker at the hotel where Andrea's room was before I was directed there. I was so excited that I even forgot to knock on the door. I just pushed the door open, but my excitement vanished immediately. I did not expect to see what I'd seen that day. Not in a million years did I think that my own wife will be sprawled on the bed like a whore in her wedding dress, while the wedding planner that was under my fucking payroll was on top of her naked. It felt like the whole world had stopped and was waiting for me to digest the sight I was looking at. Andrea's wedding gown, a gown that I fucking paid for, was ripped off. They were having sex right before my eyes. They were so lost in the act that it took a few seconds before Andrea noticed my presence. I can still remember how her eyes widened infinitesimally and how she pushed the wedding planner off her immediately. I was then able to see the full state of her dress. She looked like a fucking hooker. Her makeup was smeared and her hair was scattered around the place. She opened her mouth to speak, but I grabbed the glass of water near the door and threw it at the bed immediately. I was angry. I was livid, and I swear that it took all my self-control for me not to throw that glass at their heads. Before a second thought, I slapped the wedding planner across the face. The fool had to be less than 24 years old at most. He was slimmer than a model, and I thought he was even gay. But no, the boy I was paying to plan my wedding was sleeping with my wife. Do you know the worst part? They didn't even have the decency to use a condom. I grabbed him by the shoulders and kicked him in the groin. Yes, Redditors, I kicked him there. Andrea jumped out of the bed and started pleading with me. She said she was sorry and blah, blah, blah. I didn't even have time to listen to her. I called out to my elder brother, whose room was just a few rooms away. I continued calling his name till he rushed into the room. He was also shocked to see what was going on. He rushed to my side and asked me if what he was seeing was true. Of course it was, and that's what I told him. I was disgusted, irritated, and disappointed. There are no words to describe the amount of disgust I felt for Andrea and the wedding planner. I felt betrayed, but at that moment, everything began to make sense to me. I finally understood why Andrea sneaked out of the hotel to go buy something the day before. Everything finally made sense to me, but it was just too late. There was nothing I could do because I was already married to her. I was married to a cheater, and she dared cheat on me on our own wedding day. I could not even look at Andrea or listen to her speak, and that's when I hatched my plan. I did not care if I was already married to her or whatnot. I needed to make her regret her actions. I needed to make her shiver in fear whenever she heard my name or even got remotely close to me. There was no way I was going to act like I did not just see what transpired before me. I had no reason to protect a marriage that had no respect for me. Just one look at my brother, and he already knew what I had in mind. He could tell that I wanted to disgrace them, so he asked me what to do. I told him to grab the wedding planner while I grabbed Andrea. He did as he was told, and that was how we grabbed them out of the room. My fellow Redditors, I know you all are wondering what we ended up doing to them. Well, I did what I could think of at that moment that would be extremely embarrassing. I wanted to make sure that I crushed their egos to the limit. You know the funny thing? The huge guest list Andrea and her family were so desperate to have worked to my own advantage. There were over 150 people present, which meant they did not listen to me. But guess what? It ended up ruining them at the end of the day. All the guests were already waiting for us at the reception, and so my brother and I dragged them to the reception hall. The wedding planner pleaded with me to let him at least put on his pants, but I refused. Yes, I refused. Do you think he just stood there and let my brother carry him? Oh no. He tried putting up a fight. But that was when I called on two of my other friends who came too, look for me and ask why we took so much time. So Redditors, 3 men dragged the wedding planner to the reception while I pulled Andrea and followed them. She cried, wailed, and begged for my forgiveness, but I ignored her like the filth she is. I did not care about her tattered clothes, messy hair, or almost exposed boobs. She's shameless, so she should not have a problem with being disgraced in front of the guests. Everyone stood up immediately when they saw us. I could see the obvious shock on their faces. I mean, they all came to witness a wedding, but they were seeing a naked man and almost naked woman. A woman that was supposed to be the bride. Andrea's family rushed towards us with obvious worry on their faces. My fellow Redditors, they looked horrified. They tried to cover her up, and her father even had the audacity to ask me if I was out of her mind. I ignored them and pushed Andrea to the stage with the wedding planner. My parents tried to talk to me and ask me what was going on, but I ignored them too. I was too angry to act reasonably or try to explain anything to anyone, so I just focused on what I wanted to do. Just as I went to grab the mic from the MC, Andrea tried running away, but my brother was able to grab her on time. Even the wedding planner did not dare move. He just squatted and hid his face because he was aware of his full nudity. His only saving grace was the towel that one of his employees threw to him. That's what he used to cover himself up. Using the mic, I told everyone how I just found my newly wedded wife sleeping with the wedding planner in her hotel room when she was meant to be changing into her reception dress. My fellow Redditors, I can still remember the gasps that echoed in the hall that day. Before I could even start the next sentence, people grabbed their phones and started recording the scene that was unfolding before them. For the first time in my entire life, I was happy to have a huge crowd present. I told everyone how Andrea must have been sleeping with this wedding planner for a long time. Well, I was not wrong, guys, because I discovered that they started having an affair the moment she hired him. You should not have allowed her to keep the wedding planner. Those were the words some people said to me. I laughed in their faces and called them cowards. It sounds stupid to try and blame me for someone else's poor choices. I should have stopped her from cheating. What's that supposed to mean? A person that wants to cheat will cheat. They don't need an excuse. Cheaters do not need to be given excuses for decisions they made when sober. Andrea tried to turn the tables around and tell me how I cheated on my date that night when we met. I had to explain to the fool that I was not even in a relationship with the girl I brought. She was my date to the wedding, and we were in the talking stage. I was not dating her, neither was I married to her. I was not her fiancé. Andrea was so dumbfounded that she had to hide her face from the cameras. At that moment, I knew I was done with her, and so I left the reception hall immediately. Thankfully, I'd not given the wedding planner his remaining balance for planning the wedding. Of course, I was not foolish enough to give it to him. I went to Andrea's hotel room with my brother and packed all the dresses she bought for the reception, the jewelry, and even her shoes and bags. I also grabbed her purse. I sold everything off 1 week later and kept the money for myself. I paid for the whole wedding. I might have wasted money on the reception, but I was able to get my money back from the outrageous designer bags and shoes. That's how my wedding ended 2 weeks ago, guys. Talk of plot twists, right? I decided to share this story with Reddit because I'm still shocked from the events. I've not seen Andrea since that day, and I do not plan to see her anytime soon. I filed for annulment the very next day after the wedding, and after a lot of procedures, our marriage will be annulled soon. I think it's right to say I had the worst wedding ever, lol. I'm just very thankful that I found out in time. It was already late, but it could have been worse. If she can cheat on our wedding day, what can't she do? I've freed myself from the marriage, and in a couple of days, I'll be legally free and single. Thank you for reading this disgusting experience of mine. I hope you learn a thing or two from my experience. Till next time, Reddit.